Hello, Barbara. Thank you so much for joining us as part of Positive Aging Week 2020. For our viewers here today, I wonder if you would just introduce yourself, give a little bit of your background and the services that you're involved in.
I'm Barbara Murphy, Head of Older People Services for the South East Community Healthcare, which covers Waterford, Wexford, South Tipperary and Carlow, Kilkenny. So anything about older people comes across my desk, and the Positive Aging Week would be a major part of my role, and I'm very delighted to be able to talk about the nursing home support scheme within the South East Community Healthcare.
So can you tell us a little bit then about, we say, the Fair Deal, and how can a person avail a Fair Deal?
Okay. Fair Deal is a support of a financial support to older people going into a long-term facility, whether it's public or private. There are two main steps within Fair Deal. Firstly is the financial step, and anybody can fill that out. They can download it off the internet, or they can go into any of the HSE community care offices, and those applications, even the local doctors have the applications in their GP practices. You fill it out. They have to completely fill it and submit it with all the financial documentation that's requested. The second part of it is medical. So the medical part is very important because you actually have to be signed off for Fair Deal. So if I decide I'd love to go into a nursing home, but I'm fit and healthy, I may not reach the criteria for a nursing home. So there is a level of nursing care that you require to provide, for Fair Deal, or the nursing home support system, as we call it, because we have to make sure that there are enough beds to look after the people that really need the care, not because somebody feels lonely at home. And that sounds awful, but it is the way, and that's how we do it. So the medical assessment part of it is if somebody is at home and family are struggling with them caring for them, the public health nurse will complete what we call a common assessment summary form. And this includes if their mobility, whether they have incontinence, how they walk, if they use a stick or a mobile or a wheelchair, whether they can go upstairs or not, and different things like that they cover. And then also we have to do a mental test score just to make sure that somebody, if they have a dementia, an underlying dementia, or they could be fully cognitive, but their mobility is very poor and they get a lower score on their what we call their Bartel. So that will cover them then once that's signed off by a consultant or by a local placement forum. That will achieve them getting through the medical assessment. Financial assessment, having looked at your income and assets, the financial assessment will be worked out for your contribution of care. So you will contribute 80% of your pension, and that goes whether you have a private, public, an English pension and an Irish pension. It's all combined. And then you look at 7.5% of your assets per year. So it's the value of your house and the value of the money that you have. So as a single person, the first 35,000 is cut off, and there's a couple, it's 72,000. Now you have to have an auctioneer to value your house, but I can tell you at the moment, if you tell them it's for Fair Deal, there will be a much lower cost than the cost that you would be normally selling your house. And this is capped after 3 years. It is reviewed after 3 years to see how much you have spent, and your cost may go down at that stage. Unfortunately, if you have land or this isn't capped, it's lifetime. Now they're still looking at this. We have to change the Health Act bill for this to change, but the HSE are working with the Department of Agriculture to look at that, because it is unfair. But just because you are a farmer, you're caught under that for life you have to pay the same amount, and it's usually they're the people that have rich with money but very little cash flow, and there's problems. I suppose one of hospital admissions, often when you're in a hospital, a decision has been made to you have to go long-term care, and people delay in giving the fair deal up. And I just want to point out to people that an acute hospital, whether you have a medical card or not, can actually charge you €1,300 a week. And they will do it if you don't cooperate with them, because now it's about people on trolleys, so they want to keep the beds flowing. So it's a big thing for people to regard, and that their relatives know this, that it's not about when the decision is made that you need to cooperate, that you have 15 days to get your application in and to get things sorted. I suppose one of the big things with fair deal is that the person themselves must make the decision for fair deal. So I can fill out a form as a daughter or even as a healthcare worker. I can fill out the financial part, and I can fill out the medical assessment. But from the medical assessment, the person themselves must sign the form. They have to agree. So it's not about where I decide, well, I've had enough at home of my mum and dad. They may have a little bit of dementia. They have to agree. And even from a dementia patient, there is always a moment of time where they know whether they can go into a nursing home or not. We all think, because we have a cognitive impairment, that we don't know what's going on. But we learn in healthcare that there is always an opportunity of time. If you repeat it long enough to somebody, it will go in, and then they will make a decision whether they can go home or not. Now, often we have people within an acute hospital where they decide, the family may decide to put in an application, and maybe a consultant will say, yes, I agree with this, but let's give us a trial at home. And once you get your fair deal funding, we actually hold that for 6 months until then. Our recommendation would be for older people to look at getting enduring powers of attorney for their next of kin, where the people can make decisions for them medically and financially, so that you've one person deciding, because often in families it's the finances that causes the issue, where somebody might struggle at home and really need 24-hour care, but some member of family feel they don't want that person spending their money. So by going for enduring power of attorney, it is well worth it. Now, it does cost money, because you have to have a solicitor and you have to go to court. It's the cost of €2,000. But they reckon before you get to the later stages of your life that it's better to make that enduring power of attorney, so you always have somebody. Because nowadays with the decision-making act, that a next of kin can't make any decisions for you. We all think, it's great, I'm mum's next to kin. And I suppose personally, I look at that myself, often think, I can make the decisions for my mother. And I have an elderly mother myself, but I can't. Now, my mother isn't cognitively impaired, so she makes her own decisions. But because I made her go for an enduring power of attorney. So if she loses her ability to make decisions, I can make them. But it is the case where nobody can make a decision. A next of kin can't make a decision. It means nothing, because an older person can actually decide their next door neighbour can be their next of kin now. So it is very different. So I suppose people want to know then what happens, when they go into a nursing home, and how do they pay? So what happens is the financial contribution is sent to them by letter, and you have to agree for the financial contribution. And that is what you pay the nursing home, and the HSE pay the rest. So usually the HSE would have contracted beds in nursing homes, and they're usually paid anything from 890 over €1,000 per week for a bed. So if my contribution is €300 per week, I pay €300, and then the HSE pays the rest. But the one thing that I tell people about the nursing home support system, there is always in a private nursing home an extra charge. And when people are going in, it's the question that they have to ask the nursing home: what charge is extra coming in? And it usually can be anything from €10 a day to €10 a week. It depends on the nursing home, because what it is it's a charge for laundry or activities. In the public sector, they don't charge for activities, but they will charge for laundry. So, but as part of your contract of care in either area, public or private, you have to sign that, and you know what charge you're being given. So if you're being charged for your prescription, you will know that by your contract of care. And people need to realise this going into a nursing home, as well as the nursing home support that they have to pay. They also have an extra charge, and often people don't realise that. So you have to take that into account from your savings, because it's often maybe €200 extra a month that they're paying, which is quite a bit when you think of it, because somebody going in, their pension actually drops down. Because if you're living at home on your own, an older person that lives alone gets an extra €20 a week, and they get the fuel allowance and all these things. But all of them are gone when you go in, yet you're still paying for electricity in your house, and you're paying insurance. So like that is, all these things have to be taken into account when you're going into a nursing home, and people don't think about that. So when you're looking at your savings and how you're going to manage it, this is what you have to take into account. And anybody can ask for a review of their payments. After a year, if they felt, I'm paying a lot out for insurance on my house, or paying electricity and property tax, can I get this reviewed as my savings are going down? And the nursing home support offices will always do that for you. Okay. I suppose the other factor that people like to know about is, if I'm in an acute hospital and suddenly I'm told I have to go to long-term care, then I need my family, and I've never thought of long-term care before. Maybe I've had a stroke and suddenly can't go home. I fill out the fair deal, I'm signed off for it. So the family must make contact with the nursing home. The nursing home owners prefer to talk to the family members or to the person themselves. They do not want to talk to nurses or discharge coordinators. They'll communicate about the discharge date, but they actually want to talk to the family so that they know it's not the nurse, it's not the hospital that's pushing this person out, that everybody has an agreement, that the fair deal has been signed by the relative and so forth, so that everything is up on board, and also that they'll be told about the charge, about the visiting, and everything that's available to them in the nursing home, and they go down on a nursing home list for that reason. And we would recommend that you ring a couple of nursing homes so that you're down on a couple of different nursing home lists. Because the acute hospitals now, to keep the flow, you may not get your first choice or your second choice. You may have to be assessed by a nursing home who has a bed, and then when your first choice comes, you will be moved to that nursing home, and your fair deal automatically moves with you. And that's always somebody's worry, is if they're moving nursing homes, do they have to apply again? So it doesn't happen. You can actually move with the person. It moves automatically because the first nursing home has to sign a discharge form and send it to the nursing home support office, and the new nursing home signs an admission form. So we just put it up on the system. You're now in B instead of A nursing home. You could be moving counties. This happens quite often where somebody goes, say they live in Waterford and their family all live in Cork. They go into a nursing home Waterford and realise I'm not getting visitors because all my friends are getting old and can't visit me anymore. So they move where their nearest family person is. And this happens quite often. On a weekly basis, we would have people moving about. So, we try to give a fair process, and it is a fair deal for people. So it's well worth it for people to think about, how they can manage.
Barbara, if a person feels that they don't qualify for a fair deal, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, I suppose they could go privately, but you need to be very clear that you're not going to think, because you could go into a nursing home, and I know people that have been in nursing homes for 10 years. So what I always recommend, it doesn't matter how much money you have, put your application in to Fair Deal and let them decide what your contribution of care is. And yes, if it's over the contribution, but you're on the books and you can always ask for the review. So if you go in and maybe the first year you haven't, but you want to remember when you're going in privately, you'd have to do a deal with the nursing home because they could be charging you €1,500 a week. So your money runs down very quickly. So if you look at, you could be paying $6,000 a month. So if you look at that, it's $72,000 a year. So if you're living for 10 years, at some stage you will become, it would become viable for you to be able to apply for Fair Deal. So I always recommend people put their application in. Let us tell you that you're not, don't meet the criteria, but you're on our books and we will review your savings whenever you want to happen. Because you might have shares that collapse and worth nothing, and you can come back to us and say, well, I've lost 200,000 or 300,000 on shares, and that makes a huge difference to people and their families. So and a lot of these people don't actually have cash assets. They're in the bank, or they're with shares, or they're in land. So it does make a huge difference.
Before we finish up, if you were to recap on the top 3 or 4 things that you would say to remind people about today, what would those be?
Remember that you make the decision, not your family, that you must sign the form. You need care. It's not about being lonely at home. There is other options out in the community for people that are lonely. Like we have, contact projects. We have day centres. People have Meals on Wheels, both public and private. Home support workers going in. So, all those options, you want to remember those. And I suppose the biggest one is to make sure that you give everything in the financial assessment so that you're covered and that they're not coming back, and that if you tell a lie on it, that actually when the probate is done at the end of time, you actually can be found out. So it's one of the biggest factors. Tell the truth on it in the beginning and you will get through the system much quicker. But make sure you get your choice of nursing home and that you're making the choice, not your family. I suppose I'd like to give a thought for the future. You're not the victim of the world, but rather the master of your own destiny. If your choices and your decisions that determine your destiny, and this was said by Ray T. Bennett.
Thank you very much, Barbara. It's been very informative.